Hey, welcome to the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Nick Angiers. Today's the first time that I'm shooting this podcast in video as well. So if you want to check out the video, you can do so on YouTube at the Meeple YouTube channel. And if you're just listening to the podcast, then it won't make any difference to you. But you are able to speed up the audio in YouTube. So I just have like a logo of Board Game Entrepreneur. So that's what I do with a lot of videos. If I want to listen to more in less time, then I'll go to YouTube. That option isn't available on podcasts yet. So hopefully I just saved you a bunch of time. Otherwise, thanks for listening regardless. So today I'm telling you a little bit about my newsletter. So a newsletter is something that I've come across in all the, like the side hustle podcasts. If you're doing some kind of business in this day and age, you should probably have a newsletter. You should be building that newsletter. And then when you do launch some kind of offer, then you'll have a whole bunch of people to see it. And then some of them will buy it. At least that's the idea. I originally started this newsletter last year. And when I was doing it, I was collecting people's email addresses from my small events that I was doing. And how I incentivized people to do it was, I said every month, I'm just going to send one letter, and then I'm going to draw one person every month, and they're going to get some kind of prize. So after that, I approached some collaborators, so some retail stores. If I, for example, I got a government grant last year. I haven't done an episode on that yet. I had a government grant, and I had a few $100s to buy games from, so I bought some games from one store, and I said, instead of giving me a discount, why don't you just give me a voucher, and then I'll use that as a prize for my newsletter. So it works out quite well, right? They don't have to discount their prices, and then having that voucher as part of my newsletter also gives them more exposure. So I had about 75 people on the newsletter, and I was sending out one a month. However, I sent it out for about 6 months, and I was giving out a prize each time, often in the same way, striking a deal with a collaborator, a gift card, just like $10, whatever, just to incentivize people to actually open it. And what I was finding was, even with this prize, not a lot of people were actually looking at the newsletter. So what the content of the newsletter was this past month, what kind of events I've done, here's some cool pictures, and then what's coming up this next month, if I have any news, that kind of thing, a newsletter. And I just found that not a lot of people really cared much about it. And it was kind of stressful because every month I would spend like a good half hour trying to resize the photos and stuff like that. And I'd want to get it done on like the last day of the month to get it out for the first day of the following month. But what I found was it was a bit of a barrier just because the photos are hard to resize. The newsletter will tell you that the photos are too big. It'll help you resize them. But it's just a lot of fiddly steps in between. One month, I sent out the newsletter, and what I had been doing prior to that was whenever someone won a prize, I'd send them a separate message, separate email saying, you won this prize. And I was just using a randomizer, so I'd have Google pick a number between 1 and 75 or whatever, and then I'd go through my list and find the person that corresponded to that number. So this one month, I emailed them directly, gave them the prize, they were happy. I did that for a few months. And then one month I was like, you know what? This month I'm not going to contact the person directly. I'm going to tell them in the newsletter that they won this prize. And nobody responded to that. So obviously they didn't see it. And I was kind of like, okay, maybe people aren't really opening this letter. MailChimp, that's the service I use. It does show you your open rate. So my open rate was about 40%, which is apparently pretty high. And then I did that again the next month, and again the same thing happened. So the winner of the prize didn't contact me. And I was like, you know what? This is not worth my time. This is just kind of stressful, and it's not really making a big difference. So I'm not going to do this anymore. So I stopped doing the newsletter. And I think it's okay to try something for a while, and if you feel like you're not getting the results that you want, to just stop doing it. You don't have to keep doing it just because you've started. You have to pick and choose the things that you keep doing. So pivot or persevere, right? So in this case, I chose to just focus on other things. More recently, after I started this podcast about 2 months ago, since I still had the newsletter list, I thought, I'm going to give this another shot, but I'm going to mix it up a bit. So now I'm going to do a weekly newsletter, but it's going to be very, very simple. So no images, no pictures, stuff like that. Just a very straightforward template, new content, and then events for this week. Right now, I just have the one live game show each week. So that's all it is, just text and some links. And then every Monday morning when my new podcast episode goes live, also now a new video goes live, I have it all pre-scheduled. And I'm still doing the newsletter on Monday, but I can pre-schedule that as well. So everything's all automated. And this is working a lot better. So it's not really a pain point for me. It feels very, very fast to do. And also, it just makes me feel more organized. Hopefully, it makes me come across as being more organized. Like every Monday, I have a regular schedule. I do this and I do that, and then I post new content, and then I send out a newsletter to tell people about it. And I'm still getting an open rate of 40%. I don't even really know what that means. And I can have it automatically post to Facebook. That's one function that MailChimp has. So I think that's where most of the community is, and I hesitate to say my community because I feel like I'm just a member of this community. I don't have any influence over any specific community, but when I do the newsletter, I post it to Facebook, and I get a little bit of a response that way. So some people might discover it through Facebook, and then they can see that I have, a new event and a new podcast episode. They might see that in the newsletter. They also might see it in my feed. Meeple Leaf added an event that might interest you. But it all comes back to, I think people are just so inundated with information nowadays that it's so easy for things to go under the radar just because there's so much happening each day. Like, I don't look at a ton of stuff on my Facebook feed, and I look at it every day. Like Instagram, I go on maybe twice a week, and just to see if there's anything interesting there. So that's really one thing I should be spending more time on is social media. But it looks like I get the most action, the most benefit out of Facebook. It seems like that's where a lot of people are concentrated and more responsive. So another function I found is on Facebook, you can actually get a button that says sign up. So a lot of people are confused by what sign up means. Like, what does it mean? Do I sign up for some kind of service or something? It's just for a newsletter. So you can link the sign up button on your Facebook page to your newsletter, and automatically people can get signed up that way. Okay, so those are my thoughts on how I've been using my newsletter and what I think it's doing for me. So not a whole lot, but if anything, then it's good just to have that regularity and show that I'm not just posting stuff randomly. I actually have a regular schedule. Now, in order to grow this list, I think it's really important because in the future, I do plan to do a book for this podcast, Board Game Entrepreneur book. So with detailed interviews from actual people who have board game related businesses. And I do need that email list because people have to hear about it, right? If I'm going to do a Kickstarter. So that was kind of the initial reason why I started it more than a year ago, is because eventually I need it if I were going to launch a product like that. So in order to build it, I think I still need to do a lot of work on getting people to sign up and maybe like do some really cool contests. But at the same time, like, you don't want to make a newsletter to attract people to sign up just because they want the prize. Like, they should look forward to the content. So that's something that I really have to think about. What can I give in the content of the newsletter that will really benefit people? And right now it's mostly just notifications of stuff that's coming up. So hopefully that's enough for now. I will keep doing it because I think it's a good habit to have. And next time when we do eventually have events, maybe I'll get more people to sign up and think of something better that I can put in there to want them to actually see it. So I think the most important thing is to make awesome videos and hopefully a great podcast that people will be interested in and they'll want to sign up for the newsletter. So those are all next phase kinds of things. Okay, for next episode, we actually have a listener question. So it's about the digitization, did I say that right? Of board games and what it means for the industry. So that's what I'll be talking about on the next episode of the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast. As always, thanks for listening and happy gaming.